Hi everyone, I'm Sourabh Singh, AskIITians IIT for Mathematics. I've been to AskIITians for past 4 years and I've been including and concluding the chapter of Mathematics here at AskIITians. So in this session today, we are going to discuss a very important chapter, that is inverse trigonometric functions. So just as to give you an overview of that, let's say when we propel a rocket onto a space, what has to be the angle of projection, what has to be the minimum angle, or what has to be the range of angle into which I should project such that it will leave the atmosphere of the earth. So starting with these complex calculations in order to find out the minimum height of a lighthouse, these are the certain variations of the usage of inverse trigonometric functions that we find out in our day-to-day lives. So in this part of the AskIITians video lecture, we'll try to see the chapter of inverse trigonometric functions and the various applications related to that. So let's start. Hi. So let's see what's on the screen. I think I see a number which is nothing but 6, or if I can use a bit of imagination, I can say that it's not 6 but it can be considered as a number which is 9. So am I saying the right thing or I'm doing something wrong? So let's move on to the next thing. 6, 9, big question of doubt. Now this, the same thing but a bit of inversion, right? Is it a 6 or 9? Is it 6 or 9, or the previous one that I saw, was that 6 or 9? Oh, lots of confusion. Moving ahead. Now I have the clear picture. What is this? And what is this? Am I doing something right? Am I doing something right? Is this 6 or 9 or 9 or 6? What's the exact picture? So what I can know from this figure, that these two figures are kind of mirror images but not placed parallelly enough such that I can say that one is the inverse image of the other. Based on the same logic, there is a portion in maths in which we'll deal with images and certain other formats of trigonometric ratios and quantities, which will culminate to the chapter of inverse trigonometric functions. So in this chapter, we'll read how we are going to make the inverse of the given function, what will be the domain in which the function is defined, or what will be the prospective range, and how we are going to take help of this thing in understanding various topics of maths. So stay tuned for this, and we'll start off inverse trigonometric in the next lecture. So as you know, for this part of the series, we are going to take inverse trigonometric function. So I'll tell you how we are going to deal with all of that. First of all, we'll try to get into the understanding of the topic. Then after, we'll do certain properties. Then we'll go towards the application part, and in the end, we'll compile it up with some of the previous JEE questions. So for the very first part that comes into the general introduction part, I'll tell you how do we write, how do we represent, and what are the representing functionalities of inverse trigonometric functions, taking a bit of reference from the trigonometric functions. So let's start. So the name of the chapter that we are going to read off is inverse trigonometric functions. So let's see what we are going to do in this chapter. First of all, let's start off with the topics. We'll start off the general introduction of the topic, and once we are done with that, we'll go to the principal values and domains of the inverse trigonometric functions, in which we'll learn how to define a function, how do we write out its domain and its range. Moving further, we'll have the graph of all the 6 basic inverse trigonometric functions. That will include the sine inverse, cos inverse, tan inverse, cot inverse, and so on. After that, I'll have properties of inverse trigonometric function, in which I'll start off with property number 1, property number 2, then property number 3, property number 4, taking and including all the possible variations into that, property number 5, property number 6, property number 7, which will be the culminating property, and hence we'll try to see all the possible usage of these properties into questions, and we'll try to find out how these properties will help us in understanding the whole chapter cumulatively. After that, we'll have simplification and transformations of inverse functions by using elementary substitution and with the help of their graphs. When we are done with that, we'll use identities, which will involve usage of inverse trigonometric functions. We'll try to find out the properties also which we can cater off with this. When we are done with this, we'll move on to the equations involving inverse trigonometric functions. We'll try to find out the roots of the general equation such that a quadratic involving a inverse trigonometric function, and hence finding out its root. Next to that will be the simultaneous equations and inequations, which will be involving ITF. Hence I can say that I have equal sign and inequality less than equal to greater than and equal to in order to find out the values of x that we have used, and we'll try to accumulate this with the summation of series. That all will cover the whole of the chapter, but once we are done with the understanding of this whole thing, we'll move on to the JEE questions that have occurred into the past years, and we'll try to find out a handful of questions with handful of concepts and the approach to solve these questions. So let's see and start what is there in inverse trigonometric functions for us. So fellas, getting along with the terms of inverse trigonometric function, how do we write sine inverse, cos inverse, and what is the meaning assigned to that? We have understood all of this into this part, and into the growing values and the part of this video session, we'll see what is the domain, what is the range of different inverse trigonometric functions, and we'll learn more about it. So stay tuned for more videos.